Hi, unruly anime family. Imagine this. You're just a regular high school guy minding your own business when bam, you get transferred without even a heads up to another school where it's all waifus all the time. Say what now? So our story kicks off by introducing us to our unsuspecting hero, Kimito. He's living his usual boring high school life, which gets a sudden jolt when he's tackled in the hallway by four muscle-bound dudes who look like they missed their football practice. Kimito, obviously confused, has no idea why he's being tackled or kidnapped. Next thing he knows, he's unceremoniously dumped on a sidewalk and greeted by a waifu named Miyuki. Miyuki, cool as a cucumber, tells him she works for Japan's richest families and that the whole complex there is his top secret. Hence the kidnapping and blindfolding. Totally standard procedure, right? She drops the bombshell that her bosses wanted to attend their elite school, which is actually a super prestigious all-girls school called Seikain Academy. Yup, you heard it right. Kimito is now the only dude at an all-girls school. But why, you ask? Well, stay tuned. Kimito protests that he didn't ask to be transferred, but Miyuki doesn't care, she's just following orders. She even claims he should be grateful since he'll receive the best education in Japan. Kimito is then introduced to the school's principal, who explains the reason they called him here. She noticed that the girls at this school have trouble adjusting to the outside world after graduation because they never interacted with boys. Seeing a bunch of guys on the street is a shock to them, so they want Kimito to be the only guy at the school to help the waifus get used to interacting with boys. And yeah, you might be wondering why they chose Kimito. All the waifus at this school are super rich and Kimito, well, he's not. One reason they picked him is because he's from the streets, he's dirty, and he's not wealthy. So they want the waifus to get used to dealing with people like him. But that's not all. Miyuki, who recruited Kimito, says the main reason she chose him is because she believes he likes guys. That way there's no risk of him getting any of the girls pregnant. Kimito quickly denies this, saying he's straight, which makes Miyuki realize she made a mistake in her research. Miyuki then tells Kimito that if he really likes girls, they'll have to chop off his manhood to avoid any inconveniences. So Kimito, to save his manhood, pretends to like guys. He's taken to his new classroom and is of course greeted by many waifus who are curious about the only guy and a comic club in this series. Poor refers to someone who's not rich, just like Kimito. They introduce him to a cell phone, explaining it's a commoner artifact. The waifu swarm him like it's a treasure. The blonde waifu Reiko, who is also the class leader, wraps it in a gift box before handing it back to him. Once I lent my phone at school and it got stolen. But anyway, when Reiko hands over the box, Kimito accidentally brushes her hand, causing her to faint from the physical contact. Then another waifu with orange hair, Aika, rushes in, asking Kimito for a kiss. She believes that kissing a commoner will grant any wish. Kimito quickly corrects her, saying that's a myth. Disappointed, Aika stops insisting on the other waifus gathered around, and there's a ruckus as they all try to interact with Kimito. Later, he's shown his new room, which looks just like his old one, including posters that he tears down to keep up the act that he doesn't like girls. Instead, he gets a magazine full of muscle guys, Miyuki, and informs him that she'll be his personal maid, attending to all his needs. After she leaves, Aika enters to continue their conversation. Aika reveals that her wish was to become popular. Kimito tells her that instead of a miracle, she should start by socializing more and not running away every time her classmates approach. Aika admits she can't lie, and that's why she ends up saying things that make people dislike her, even though she wants to be popular and have many friends. Kimito hands her a video game to cheer her up. Seeing Kimito's social skills, Aika decides she wants him to teach her how to be a commoner, to become as sociable as he is, and to make lots of friends. Thus, Aika found the Commoners Club with Kimito with 2 members. It's officially a club. So the point is that our main guy, Kimito, promised to teach her how commoners behave. The next day, he wakes up at the fancy school for the first time and is shocked to see he's woken up by Miyuki, his personal waifu. She tells him it's totally normal for a maid to wake up her pupil. Then she sneaks him up out the back door because he's like a celebrity there. If anyone sees him, they'll mob him. But of course they bump into Aika, who's got a radar for him and always knows the back exit because she uses it to avoid her classmates. On the way to school, Miyuki's jotting down everything Kimito says, thinking it's valuable info for becoming a proper commoner. When they get to school, Reiko, the class diva, tells Kimito they prepared a welcome party for him in the auditorium. Aika's also invited, but she's clueless as she's wandered off as usual. But hold up the parties after classes. First, they got to hit the books in the first module. They have language classes. Then it's off to sports, where I can epically fail, and our guy shines gloriously. But hey, he's competing against girls, and let's be real, guys have the edge in sports. No offense. After the school day ends, the waifus with Kimito off to the auditorium for his welcome party. Miyuki serves him a cup of instant ramen, the cheap kind you get downtown for $5 since it's commoner food. The waifus are amazed and start admiring him, but that's not all. These curious ladies each take a bit, ending up eating all his ramen. The anime doesn't show this, but they left Kimito without a bite. I know, it's so rude. The only one who didn't miss out was Aika, who sneakily ate a whole cup of food by herself at the party. It's time for dancing. But Kimito tells Reiko he doesn't know how to dance to those fancy songs. He jokes about wanting to twerk to some Bad Bunny instead. Just kidding, he didn't say that, but he did say he couldn't dance elegantly, so Reiko offers to teach him. They end up doing a spin move, ending with a spectacular pose. Not bad for a guy who claimed he couldn't dance. The party wraps up, and later we see Kimito in his room teaching Aika how to be a commoner. He introduces her to Amanda, which is less about making her a commoner and more about turning her into an otaku. But that's another story. Aika being super innocent. The manga is based on real events and now wants to stop time like a character in the story. The worst part, Kimito plays along, encouraging her to cast the spell and pretending to be frozen. But when Aika is about to kiss him, he has to stop faking and tell her the truth. Later, Aika is taking a bath and runs into Kimito, who's also stark naked. Sorry, we can't show you all these scenes because YouTube will smack us down and we'll all be out for a year. After that awkward encounter, Kimito tries to break the ice with Reiko in class, but having seen him naked, she's suddenly talking about weddings and engagements. Yeah, guys, our wife. Who's got it bad for him? Sometime later, it's another day and Kimito is woken up again by Miyuki. She informs him that his family hasn't even bothered to report his disappearance because they accepted the school's offer in exchange for some home renovations. Yep, his parents basically traded him for a nicer house. Kimito goes to his usual classes, and during recess, he notices a blue-haired girl acting weirdly and even stripping off her clothes. To avoid any misunderstandings, Kimito decides to take her to his room before anyone sees him, with a naked girl in the courtyard. This girl is not all there. She claims that Kimito took her clothes off when we all saw that wasn't the case. Anyway, Kimito doesn't plan on leaving her naked, so he dresses her. We learn that the girl's name is Hakua and she says she works in a lab. Kimito feeds her, and after eating, Hakua falls asleep. But then she wakes up, starts writing and stripping again. This girl is pretty odd, and to make matters worse, Haiko walks in and sees them. To avoid more problems, Kimito decides to take Hakua to the lab where she claims to work. It turns out she's a young genius who has created complex mathematical formulas at a very young age. They say Einstein was weird. It seems like all brilliant people are a bit nuts. Kimito delivers her and mentions he fed her ramen. The woman in charge is shocked because Hakua never accepts food from anyone and only eats what's prepared in the lab. After Kimito leaves, the woman gossips to her colleagues about how different Hakua seemed around Kimito, even breaking her rule of not eating outside the lab. Back at school, Kimito runs into a waifu wielding a katana named Karen. Apparently, she emerged from the sewers, and as soon as she sees Kimito, she insults him and says she'll take him down. Seriously, where did this waifu come from? Karen attacks Kimito for no reason, calling him scum. No one understands why she's attacking him. In one of her attacks, she ends up stripping everyone's clothes. Seeing no way to contain her, Kimito decides to face her. During the clash, there's a small accident that causes Karen to briefly faint. When she wakes up, she admits defeat and declares she will be Kimito's disciple. Nothing about this wife who makes sense, people. Let's just ignore her and move on. Next, we see Kimito teaching Aika how to be a commoner. Suddenly, Hakua and then Karen show up. It looks like ignoring Karen won't be that easy. Karen says that since Kimito defeated her, she now belongs to him and will stay with him, doing whatever he says. Seriously, what's up with Karen? Later, Reiko and her waifu squad invite Kimito to another party. But this party is a bit sketchy since Reiko says it will be in her room. Just as Kimito is about to accept the invite, Aika reminds him that he promised to give her some commoner lessons at that time. This excuse gets him out of the conversation with the waifus outside. Aika tells him she's suspicious about the party in Riko's room and advises him not to go. Kimito listens and tells Reiko he can't attend because he has to do something with Aika. Reiko seems okay with it, but later tells her friend she's convinced Aika is getting commoner tips from Camilo because she overheard their conversation in his room. It looks like Reiko has been spying and we didn't know. One of her friends suggests that it's weird that Kimito and Aika are always alone in his room, hinting they might be a couple. This idea torments Reiko, who yells at her friend for suggesting such a thing, since we all know she's got a thing for Kimito. Her scream was so loud that even Kimito heard it, so later he visits Reiko to see how she's doing. She's really down, so when he returns to his room, he tells Aika that Reiko looked sad. Aika proposes organizing a commoner event to cheer her up and suggests taking credit for the idea to win the other waifu's favor. Later, we see Kimito presenting the commoner event, which turns out to be a showcase on how to be a commoner. The model for the demonstration is none other than Reiko, who loves the attention. The event's model lifts her spirits, especially since she gets to share the spotlight with Kimito for the event. Reiko dresses like a commoner and acts the part, even taking the opportunity to apologize to the friend she yelled at. Everyone ends up happy. After the event, Reiko thanks Kimito for organizing it because it made her feel good again. Kimito tells her not to thank him because it was actually Aika's idea. He hoped this would help Reiko befriend Aika, but Reiko took it the wrong way. She already suspected Aika and Kimito were dating, so she storms off. When she finds Aika in Kimito's room, she tells her she hates her. Aika is completely baffled since she thought Reiko should be grateful for the gesture that cheered her up. But since Reiko thinks Aika is stealing Kimito, they end up in a fight. So the two waifus start brawling in front of Kimito until he tells them to stop. They throw a pillow at his head, but at least it stops the fight. Later, Reiko leaves Aika on Kimito's bed. Just then, Aqua and Karen show up with applications to join the common. Reiko arrives with hers too. The club that started with 2 people is now up to 5. Aika protests, saying she won't let Reiko join because they don't get along, but Kimito insists that by letting Reiko in, they might become friends. The girls don't seem very convinced, but we'll see how it goes as the story progresses. The next day, Kimito wakes up to find Heiko is sleeping next to him, which is weird since he took her back to the lab the night before. But we know this girl is pretty odd. Still, Kimito prepares breakfast for them. Hakua starts helping him, but in a blink, her first piece of clothing flies off. She begins developing formulas and stripping seems to be her way of concentrating. After breakfast, they chat about some boring stuff I won't repeat here. Kimito drops her off at the lab, even though she wanted to stay with him. He can't live with a minor. That's just not right. Meanwhile, Aika and Reiko, who supposedly didn't get along, are now discussing how Hakua is trying to stick to Kimito. The enemy of my enemy is my friend, right? They team up to keep Hakua away from Kimito and Karen. Well, she's just there saying she wants to kill Kimito. Seriously, what's up with Karen? After their meeting, the 3 decide to keep Hakua away from Kimito. Later, they wait for her in Kimito's room and try to annoy her, but Hakua ignores them and starts solving equations until she falls asleep. In the end, the waifus couldn't drive her away and ended up making Kimito's bed for her to sleep in. The woman in charge of Hakua finds her later, and Hakua says she had fun with her friends even without Kimito, so the wife who's trying to bug her ended up becoming her friend. Later, Kimito gets home and plays a video game where the wife, who on the screen pretends to be his girlfriend Eiko, walks in and asks why he's playing that. Kimito explains that a friend of his voice is the character, so he feels comfortable with it. Aika immediately wants to meet the game character and gets attached. Then Reiko enters, and since Kimito left, she stays in his room waiting for him. During the wait, Eiko and Reiko start analyzing Kimito's things, starting with his manga, then his fridge. They decide to have a soda, but being rich girls, they've never tried street soda. They spit it out, thinking it's expired because of the bubbles, and end up soaked. They strip down to their swimsuits and start fighting. Kimito walks in on this weird scene and runs out. Later, the headmistress informs Kimito they've organized a trip for the waifus to experience a common environment, so they hop on a plane and head to their destination, which is a replica of a normal city with no people. To avoid overwhelming the waifus, they start by learning about traffic lights, pedestrian crossings, supermarkets, and fast food joints. The waifus are amazed that commoners have to wait in line for food and love the self-service concept since they're always pampered. When it's time to practice ordering food, Reiko goes first but struggles to communicate with the server. Kimito has to step in and order for her. The others, also inexperienced, all end up ordering the same burger combo. Now I'm hungry. Kimio bites into his burger, excited because he hasn't had fast food in ages. They move on to the arcade, where Kimito shows them how to use the claw machine and dance games. Some wife who's busted out Michael Jackson moves, and Aika realizes she's overcome her stage fright. Aika, having received private common lessons from Kimito, seizes her moment to teach and makes many friends. Later, they go to a clothing store where Karen wants a blouse but doesn't know how to buy it. Kimito tells her she has to go to the checkout, but Karen thinks he wants a duel and draws her sword. Kimito, knowing Karen isn't normal, plays along. Believing Kimito is her master, Karen obeys his order to strip and try on the blouse. We see Aika and Reiko paired up in the same room, but Aika is busy writing to her new friends. Knowing Reiko is the school's most popular waifu, Aika asks for advice on how to talk to her friends and become more popular. Meanwhile, Kimito is awakened by Miyuki and later finds Aika, who tells him she doesn't need lessons anymore since she has friends now. Kimito decides to disband the club to let Aika join other clubs and spend time with her new friends. Kimito heads to the hotel pool and runs into Aika, but soon her friends arrive so he has to hide. But Kimito isn't a fish and can't hold his breath forever. He faints underwater, and Aika saves him from mouth to mouth. Her friends see this and think they're kissing. When Kimito wakes up, he's back in his bed and doesn't understand why people are whispering behind his back. Aika the waitress thinks they're dating. Before she can explain why, Karen punches him and leaves as usual. Back at school, Aika tells the club the truth about what happened with Kimito. Reiko, relieved it's a misunderstanding, tells Aika to explain everything to Kimito, but Aika wants to wait for the right moment. They start arguing. Just another day in their chaotic lives. Sometime later, Aika finds herself alone with Kimito, but instead of telling him the truth about what happened while he was unconscious, she prefers to dress up as Rama. Just then, the other three waifus walk in, witnessing a pretty weird scene. After that, the five of them go to Kimito's room to predict their futures with an app he has on his phone. When it's Karen's turn, the app says she's a bit crazy. No surprise there. Karen doesn't like this and snatches the phone, finding another app that matches people based on compatibility. Reiko proposes they play with this new app, hoping it will pair her with Kimito. All the girls want to know their compatibility with Kimito, so they start with Aika. The test shows an 80 out of 100, suggesting Aika and Kimito could be a good match. This makes Aika happy, but Reiko demands her turn to see if she can score higher. Reiko gets a 90, implying she and Kimito could get married. Reiko is thrilled, while Aika is disappointed. Next, it's Hakua's turn, and she scores 50. No surprise there since we don't match kids with older guys. Now it's Karen's turn and she scores a 0. The app even says if they paired up Kimito would likely die, but it turns out there was an error because Kimito entered Karen's ID wrong. With the correct ID, they get 100. Honestly, I think the app is broken. The previous results seem more realistic. Reiko and Ika argue over the results like political opponents after an election. Karen joins in the dispute, and Kimito decides to take Hakua for ice cream to escape the chaos. Later, Kimito wakes up again with Miyuki watching over him. He asks her to stop waking him up because he's getting bored of seeing her first thing every morning. Miyuki insists it's her duty, so he's stuck with her. Kimito heads to the hallway and is attacked by Karen, who nearly cuts his arm off. Luckily, he dodges, and only his shirt gets torn. Karen drags into a room, offering tea to make up for the injury and showing off the blouse she bought thanks to him. She starts sewing his shirt, and Kimito comments that living with her has shown him she's not as crazy as she seems. This makes Karen blush, and she uses the excuse of sewing to strip off his other shirt, wanting to see him shirtless. The other waifus walk in, so Karen hides with Kimito in the closet, but it's too small, and they end up falling out, creating another awkward scene. The five of them eventually gather in Kimito's room, chatting about random things. Kimito gets the idea to dress the waifus as maids to teach them how waitresses act in the city. I'm not sure what fetishes this guy has, but it's getting weird. The waifus comply and start pretending to be waitresses. Kimito orders them around, teaching them how to process in order. I still think this is just an excuse to make them cook for him. You and I know that learning to be a waiter isn't necessary for fitting into society. Reiko starts singing, but her voice is so bad it ruins everything. Hakua's mates come in to clean up the mess. Later, Kimito heads to the park, where one of Hakua's mates invites him to the lab, showing him Hakua's workspace. Hakua joins them, and they build a sandcastle like kids. They all go to the lab's cafeteria, but only Kimito and Hakua eat while the mates. Thinking there's something romantic between them, the mates starve for entertainment, since they can't watch TV and create soap operas in their heads about Kimito and Hakua. They even conspire to get them together, serving the food in a romantic setting. Miyuki, the head of the mates, arrives, and everyone stands at attention, cooling the romantic conspiracies. Kimito heads back to his room and calls for Aika to meet him alone. Naturally, Aika blushes and wonders why he wants to talk to her alone. Her gift revealed a yellow suit. He says it will make her the most popular girl in school. This sounds like one of Kimito's pranks, but he seems serious, so Aika goes along with it. She's been pranked before, so she's suspicious. Kimito shows her a photo of a supposedly popular guy wearing the suit. Apparently, he's Dandy Chikano, a well-known comedian in Japan. Kimito tells Aika that if she wears the suit and does his signature salute, she'll be popular instantly. Aika, convinced, puts on this suit and starts practicing the salute. Kimito plans to tell her that it won't magically make her popular, but she runs off excitedly to try it out. Kimito tries to stop her, knowing she'll embarrass herself, but he bumps into Mayuki. Aika gets ahead and even crosses paths with Reiko. Curious, Reiko chases her, demanding to know where she's going in such a hurry. Aika tells Reiko that Kimito taught her the commoner salute to be popular and demonstrates it. Reiko, believing the story, starts crying out of envy because Kimito didn't teach it to her. Aika offers to teach Reiko and they practice together. Reiko plans to show the whole class, so when Kimito catches up, he finds all the waifus dressed in yellow doing the cringe-worthy salute. After this, Reiko overhears Kimito on the phone saying he wants to leave the school because he misses his guy friends. So she runs to tell the other waifus, and they come up with a plan to make Kimito's day. They're a brilliant idea, act like guys, so he won't miss his friends anymore. With no better ideas, they all agree to become more masculine, deciding to imitate the only guy they know, Kimito. But since Kimito is pretty simple, they can't think of any personality traits to copy, so they decide to mimic a phrase he once said, "I like muscles." This phrase, which Kimito said under Miyuki's coercion, makes the waifus think he likes men. They go shopping for a muscle suit, and since there's only one, they play rock, paper, scissors to see who gets it. Aika wins and wears it, but the others criticize her, calling her ugly out of indie. Of course, they also consider using masculine cologne. Dressed in their peculiar outfits, they visit Kimito. Naturally, he asks what the heck is going on. Aika, who can't lie, says it's because he mentioned leaving. Reiko confesses she heard him say he missed his guy friends and wanted to leave, so they decided to act like guys to make him stay. Kimito reassures them that what he said on the phone wasn't how he really feels, and he plans to stay at the school. Later, Kimito and Aika are alone in a classroom, and Reiko seizes the opportunity to offer Kimito private lessons on flower arranging. She's noticed he's clumsy in that class and wants more alone time with him. Kimito, innocent and unaware of her ulterior motives, agrees since it benefits him too. Reiko secretly arranges for the waifus to meet at a secret location, making Aika even more desperate to strangle them before they can leave. Some maids informed Reiko that her mother and brother have come to visit, and they want to see Kimito too. During the meeting, Riko's mother explains that she wanted to meet the commoner sharing a classroom with her daughter. Riko's brother, however, is jealous and threatens to harm Kimito if he messes with his sister. Reiko calms her brother, asking him to apologize for his unjustified attitude. Riko's mother reveals that they've arranged for Reiko to marry someone named Satoshi. Even though Reiko doesn't want to marry, she has no choice because that's how things work among the rich. Parents choose their kids and spouses. Kimito is sent out of the meeting and shares the news with the other waifus, expressing his disagreement with arranged marriages. He plans to annul Riko's marriage. The waifus, realizing that without Reiko, the Commoners Club loses its cohesion, decide to call her. During their conversation, Reiko admits she misses their fights and asks Aika not to get married because the club needs her. Reiko tearfully says she wants to return to, but doesn't know how to convince her mother. Aika and the club promise to devise a plan for an older marriage. The club collaborates with Riko's brother, who also opposes the marriage, to help. They need to escape the school, which Miyuki allows, supporting them because they drive to the wedding venue with Riko's brother and some bodybuilders. Karen, spotting armed guards, volunteers to go first and showcases her sword skills, taking down the security and creating a path for her companions. Riko's brother fights a guard resembling Nicolas Maduro, while Kimito and the waifu sneak into the castle. They face challenges, but a bodybuilder helps Hakua deactivate a control panel to progress. They encounter a transformer, but Karen, dressed as a lady, slices its leg off, clearing the way. Kimito reaches Reiko and declares his opposition to the marriage. Riko's mother dismisses his opinion, insisting that marrying Satoshi is best for her daughter. Aika delivers a heartfelt speech against the marriage, closing with the popular salute. But Riko's mother remains unmoved, ordering them to leave. Riko stands up, stating she doesn't want to marry, but her mother threatens to kick her out if she doesn't comply. Kimito offers Riko a place to stay with his family, suggesting his parents could adopt her. Riko's mother, acknowledging their decision, allows Riko to choose her spouse. She hints that Kimito should marry Riko since they'll be living together, but this suggestion faces opposition from Aika, Hakua, and Karen, as well as Riko's brother, who almost punches Kimito. In the end, Riko and Kimito don't get married. The Commoners Club reunites. And that wraps up our wild summary of Shomin Sample. Kimito and the Waitress are back together, ready for more hilarious and heartwarming adventures. I appreciate you viewing my anime recap, Unruly Family. Please let me know what you think about this anime recap by liking, sharing, and commenting. And please subscribe to the channel to help us reach 5,000 subscribers.
Take you